Welcome back to the Clothes for Maintenance podcast. I am your host, Natasha Weston, and I am super excited to be back for another full episode after being gone for a couple of months. And so thank you for tuning in to episode 5. I honestly have started and stopped this recording, I want to say like 7 times so far. This is probably so far the most challenging of them all, just because of the direction I believe that this is going in. And so I did my best to write down my thoughts as I've been getting them over the last couple of weeks. And I'll be 100% honest with y'all. The only reason why I have taken so long to even pull this microphone out is because I've been stressing out about not doing a video element of the podcast at this point in time. I feel like I have been muzzling myself and not using my voice as much as I know God wants me to, because I've been so extremely hyper focused on having a video element, which I know you guys appreciate, but I just want to let you know right now, there will not be a video element of this episode. At least I'm just believing God to work that element out. But in the meantime, I cannot just leave the podcast high and dry because I don't have the element of video. So I hope that you stick around, because I believe that this episode is going to help a lot of people, which that's my hope. And for the first time, I spent my morning praying about this episode, that whatever comes out of my mouth is organic, authentic, and what God wants me to say. And so in today's episode, my goal is to kind of share where I've been in the last couple of months, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and also to just kind of let you know some of the things that have been revealed to me that I believe will help the people who tune into my life, because I do share a good bit of my life on social media and things like that. And I know there have been a lot of people, I've been catching the shade. Y'all been screenshotting old episodes saying y'all are missing it and all of that. And I cannot tell you how much I appreciate it. Quick disclaimer, yard work is going on outside, so I hope that you can't hear it in the audio. But in the event that you do, please just extend a little grace to me in that regard. And hopefully it doesn't distract too much from what's going on. So when I first started the Clothes for Maintenance podcast, it was with the intention of taking a step back and prioritizing our mental health and wellness, because I've been an entrepreneur for over a decade, way over a decade. I've been in the creative space using social media to build my personal brand and my business. And I've just reached so many stages of burnout that I got to the point where God had to sit me down for a very long period of time and refocus my focus. And so when I started this podcast, it was after ending a business podcast. And to be honest with y'all, I was just in this space where honestly, I was burnt out from the whole hustle and bustle life. And I didn't care if it meant giving up my dream to make $1 million+ I didn't care if it meant not being as well known as some of the other influencers and content creators and all of that good stuff. I just didn't care anymore. And so I wanted this podcast to focus around my growth and help others like you guys along the way. And I'll tell you, the focus was wellness, mental health with a little sprinkle of Jesus. It's been no secret that I've always kept God in my life, and that I grew up in the church. My mom's a minister. I grew up in all the things church. I grew up in the choir. I grew up in the Girl Scouts, the Women of Virtue program. When it comes to church, baby, was brought up in it very, very, very much so. And so I'll be honest, even in going into this episode, into this conversation, I really fought it for a long time because I didn't want to appear to be jumping on this new Jesus trend. And so I wanted to go in my corner without involving the world. I did not want to make this my platform. I didn't. But now I realize that not just my life, but other people's lives depend on my obedience in this season. And so I know off top, this is not going to be for everybody, but that's fine too. But I want to invite you to stick around because I do think that if I continue to use my voice, that it will help other people to realize that your faith and your relationship with God needs to take precedence over your wellness, your mental health, your self-care, and all of those things. There's a saying that says there's no rest for the weary. And I think this is very much true. Most of us, most of the world, we're weary and we're looking for rest through self-care, through vacations, through material things. But we can't truly be well in our minds and in our souls and in our businesses and all of the things that come as a result of being well until we allow God to lead our lives. And I'm not talking about some of our life, I'm talking about all of it. And I've struggled with this because, like I said, I've always been very vocal about who I serve. I was never all into it, and I believe if you have been tuned into me in any capacity, I'll say since last year, you've watched me, rebuild and re-nurture my relationship with God. And the more convicted I started feeling, the more I felt the way about being part-time in, part-time out. And I will say again that hesitation definitely came from, we see it, like there's so many people talking about Jesus and have made this their brand. And to be honest, I didn't even want to record this episode. Like I literally would have just liked to sit in my corner. But I believe now that God has called me to speak out more, because I believe that if we literally build a relationship with him and prioritize him and ask him what he wants us to do, every other area of our lives, our mental health, our wellness, our businesses will flourish as a result of that. And so this has led me into a whole season of like absolute surrender. And I want to kind of share like what has led up to this episode in the best way that I know how. Like I have so many notes, but I just want it to flow organically. And I'm going to tell you right now, the devil is busy. In this moment, there is something happening, like physically happening in my background. Y'all hear all this noise? This is nothing but the enemy trying to stop me from talking, trying to make me hit the pause stop button so that I don't get this out. But however this audio turns out, I pray that you hear what I am saying. And so if you can recall, I think episode 3, I shared about my sobriety journey. I don't know the exact number of days I was sober, but it was well over 125 days. As you guys know, I donated my kidney back in September of 2023. And so obviously there was a period of time where I couldn't drink, where I couldn't do a lot of the things that I was used to doing. And when you go a certain amount of time without doing something, you just become used to not doing it. And I welcome that. And to be honest, I think when I donated my kidney, that's what God used to like really change my heart posture and make me look more at my lack of relationship with him. I think my relationship with God was very surface level. It was very normal. It was not deep in my opinion. Well, I thought it was at the time, but now looking back at it, I really didn't know who he was. And so when you have all of this time to kind of sit and you can't do the things that your flesh used to do, you become used to it. But then when you get back in the normal groove of things, that flesh rises back up, right? Like your desire to want to do the things that you used to do and hang around the people you want to hang around does spring back up, because distraction, that's exactly what the enemy wants. And so I started to experience conviction when I did dip my toe back in the sand. So, for example, in my last 5 years of life, I haven't partied that as much as I used to. Like back in the day, I am not an alcoholic, but I definitely did a lot of social drinking. Did not go out without having a cocktail or 2 or 3, and that just became like the normal for me. And so after I went through that period of sobriety and I went back to having a cocktail every now and again, and I still do, I feel like the more that I do the things that I used to do, the more bad I feel when I do them. And so that is known as conviction, right? And to be convicted is basically to experience like a dread when you indulge in anything sinful. And the more that I found myself talking about God, like seeking him, and like when I say seeking him, I mean wanting to understand my Bible, wanting to have an actual relationship with him. Like, y'all, once I realized that my relationship with God was really surface level, that changed a lot for me, because I started feeling like a hypocrite. Like, I'm talking about God, but am I really living the life that he wants me to live? And the truthful answer to that was no. I was doing the same thing everybody else does, sharing all of the Bible verses, sharing all of the quotes, using God's word as convenience, versus like letting it convict me and actually change me. It's like one of them things, the more you play around with it, baby, you keep playing around with it for a long time, and eventually you will have to fall in line. So because I was being convicted, and because I was still inviting certain things that my flesh wanted to do into my life, this eventually led to frustration, because I felt like I didn't even know how to like talk to God and pray and ask him something as simple as like, Lord, help me to resist some of the temptations that I was feeling convicted about. And so then this led me to like questioning, like, what did I really believe? So in order to be a Christian, you have to confess with your mouth and believe in your heart. And I then had to ask myself, I want to say one of the hardest questions I've ever had to ask myself. And that was my belief in God based on me actually believing in him and what he said? Or was my belief based on what I was told and taught growing up? Now, yes, I grew up in the church. Yes, I know some Bible scriptures and all of those things, but like, did I really believe it at the end of the day? Because I could say I believe it, but when it all comes down to it at the end of the day, if you're just saying you believe and you really don't believe, it doesn't count. So don't let nobody fool you. You could know the Bible from front to back, cover to cover. You could go to church every Sunday, but if you don't really believe what God said, it does not matter. Anybody can recite anything. And that's cool. But like, understanding what God says and believing that it's true makes the world of difference. So I realized that in order for me to build a relationship, I had to look at my relationship with God as a relationship I would if I had a man. I don't got a man, by the way, but if I had one, what are the steps that I would take to actually get to know that person, to understand that person, so that I could fall in love with that person? You don't fall in love with people, for the most part, without knowing them, right? Or it's not real love. If you just fall in love and you don't know a person, it's probably not going to last. You have to actually fall in love with a person in order to stick around, in order to continue to learn them, in order to continue to understand the things they like, the things they don't like. So I realized that I had to first be honest about where I was in my belief, and accept the fact that maybe I didn't believe as much as I thought I was. Maybe I was just reciting what I thought I knew. And I had to go back to the basics. And so shout out to my pastor, Pastor Darius Daniels of Change Church. When I tell you, I'm so glad that he was put in my path, because not only was I, watching his messages on Sundays and things like that, but as he began to sow seed into me through those messages, I started to understand more that we can literally go to God for any and everything. There's, we tell people there's no such thing as a stupid question. There's no such thing as asking God for something that he can't do for you. And in that, I realized that I could go to God and ask him to help me to believe in the way that I needed to believe. And this prompted me to go into gaining an understanding of him and his life and what he did and what my responsibility is here on earth. And so I enrolled in PD's Bible U, and it's basically an online school teaching you about the Bible, the principles, the stories, all of the things you need to know to not just know Bible, but to be able to defend Jesus and defend what's in the Bible confidently. And I think that's an area that most of us struggle. Yes, again, we know how to quote some of the popular scriptures, but do we really understand what God has said? And in enrolling in this, after I want to say like the third week, I just realized that I really didn't know how to seek God as an adult. And so it confirmed my enrollment in this online school. And it's one of those things where like, I don't participate in it every day because it's so much to learn and I don't want to get overwhelmed. But in understanding Jesus's life, it has helped me to understand who he is. And when you understand who a person is, you want to continue to get to know them and get to understand them. And this kind of led up into me just having a better understanding of my part in this world. And so, like I mentioned before, I've been an entrepreneur, creative, all of those things for over a decade. And so my focus has always just been getting to the bag, making money. And I'd always get in these points. I think my burnout primarily stemmed, now looking back, it stemmed because I was missing my actual place in what God wants me to do. Like, I think sometimes we go to God and ask him for things after we've already made our own plans versus asking him what he wants us to do and living our lives according to that. And so where I am now just took a complete surrendering and telling God, like, look, I feel crazy for coming to you with this, but I really don't understand you. I really don't know you. I don't even know how to talk to you and communicate with you. Can you please help me? And no, it did not happen overnight. But as I made it my business to just stay consistent in asking him to do just that one simple thing that I thought I couldn't go to him and ask him for, he started sending the people in my life. He started to put certain things and situations in my path that forced me to get to know him better, that forced me to do that. And so I think I shared this on social media. I'm pretty sure I did. I shared a TikTok and a reel. This is around the time that I was ghost from the podcast. God told me that a move was going to be in my future. And I thought it was going to be a physical move, like a relocation to another state. And I do think that that is still in my near future. But recently, I realized that he meant a move in my spiritual journey. And for the first time ever, I have surrendered my entire life to him with no hesitation. Like, you know how you've come to God and you've been eager to learn and excited about him and excited about your walk. And then you quickly go back into like your old habits and your old ways. But this is the first time that I really haven't hesitated in where I am with him and what my role is and what he wants me to do here on earth. And I started to feel more and more responsible for my influence and how I used it. But again, y'all, I couldn't bring myself to take action because I didn't want to be another one of those people that was just jumping on this whole trend. Like, this is real life for me. This is real life for me. Anyway, I wanted to share all of that in context so that you understand where I've been going back and forth at in my mind and all of that. So let's shift gears a little bit because I want to talk about how I've been rebuilding my relationship with God, the understanding that I have now about it, because I think a lot of people are struggling with understanding how to rebuild your relationship with God, how to start building a relationship with God. And for me, for so many years, it's been over my head. Like, I couldn't understand nothing they was talking about in the Bible. It was just too many words. And you get overwhelmed and frustrated and you're like, oh, the heck with this. I'll just stick to the very basics, like the normal surface level of understanding. And so a couple weeks ago, I lost my job. And it was so sudden and it was so random and I was just so caught off guard. And this was right in that stage where I had asked God prior, like, Lord, I don't understand you the way I need to. I don't even know how to really talk to you and ask you for anything or just communicate with you. I really don't know. So I lost my job on a Wednesday. Well, that Thursday morning, I lost my job and I was shocked, but I had like a weird amount of peace about it. And I posted a reel and a TikTok about it too. So you can check that out for all of the details. But got fired on a Wednesday. That Thursday morning, before the bookstore was open, I was out in the parking lot drinking my coffee, just like waiting on them to open. And I went in there on a mission to find a new devotional by well, it's not new, but it was new for me, from Marshawn Evan Daniels, called 100 Days to Believing Bigger. My friend Kristen, shout out to Kristen. She's been on the podcast before. Kristen had raved about it prior. And so I went in there with the intention to grab that devotional and also to grab Stephen Furtick's new book. I cannot remember the name of it. So I get in the bookstore when they open and, I'm looking around for the books that I went there for. I grab the devotional, found that, and then I go over to Stephen Furtick's book. I read the back and God told me, like, you don't need another mindset book right now. Like, mindset is not your struggle. And in that moment, remember when I told y'all I had to be real about my level of belief in God? I had to be real again in that moment. Like, what do you really need? You don't need to be reading books about nothing other than what you need in this moment. And it led me back to when I told God I didn't really even know how to talk to him and communicate with him. So I put Stephen Furtick's book back on the shelf and I sat down on the floor in the bookstore right in front of the books about prayer. And if you've ever been in a bookstore, you know how overwhelming it is. There are books of every sort of kind, every kind of level. And so I didn't go in there with any like recommended books or anything like that. So I'm sitting there and I like flip through a couple of books. I read a couple of the backs of books, and sitting like right in the front of many other books was this book called Simply Pray by Deb Hopper. So I read the front and the subtitle is How to Ask, Seek, and Knock for Answered Prayer. And then, I read the back of the book and I zoom in on Seacoast Church. This author was a women's pastor at Seacoast Church. Now, you guys know that I go to Change Church online, but I physically go to Seacoast every now and again. Y'all know I've hosted my mom meetups there. Seacoast has definitely played a huge part in my spiritual development over the years. And so that was my determining factor for this book. And then I noticed that she signed the copy. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to grab this book. It looks pretty simple, pretty easy to read. It wasn't too long of a book or any of those things. I grabbed this book and I start reading it the same day. Y'all, by the time I got to maybe like chapter 2, I had already highlighted so many things. She had already given us a task to do. So it's not like one of those books where you just read it and you just move on. No, like she tells you what she did and you can actually do it as you go. And so she shares about this Ask, Seek, Knock index card, Matthew 7:7 prayer principle or activity that she started doing, where she would write Matthew 7:7 on the back of index cards, and then she would write each area of her life that she wanted to pray about constantly, consistently, every single day. And she would put those index cards everywhere that she would see them, in her car, on the mirror, everywhere. And for 30 days, she would consistently pray for those areas of her life. And that's all I'm gonna tell you, because you got to go get the book. It's just like, I read hundreds of books in my life, and this one definitely is in the top 3. I will forever advocate for this book, because when I tell you it has changed how I've talked to God and how I've grown to understand him through talking to him, I'll be here all day. I could have did a whole episode on just that. So anyway, losing my job led me to this book. And that's just how strategic God is. And that's how I know he answers even the simplest of prayers, because I felt stupid going to him and saying, look, I don't really know you like that, bruh. And I don't even know how to talk to you. Can you help me? And the fact that he's not offended by that showed me that he wants me to come to him for everything. Because if he would answer the simplest of that prayer, like, I can't even imagine the things that he could answer in the relationship that we can build, and the partnership, the benefits and the rewards of the partnership with him in my life. And so this book definitely has opened a whole new chapter. And so prayer to me now is how I communicate with God, and it's how you can communicate with God so that you can partner with him in the first place. And it takes me back to what I talked about in thinking about your relationship with God is with a person that you really like, right? If you really want to get to know a person, you have to learn how to communicate with them. You know how we always talking about love languages? Learning God's character, learning about his life, learning about his history, learning about how he thinks, how he moves. This is how you build partnership with him. And I believe this is why a lot of us are getting burnt out, why we are experiencing so many unnecessary pivots. And I'm guilty of it. You think you need to be doing this, but you're confused because you're not partnering with God. Why would you not want to partner with the person that created you, that knows your entire life from the beginning to the end? Why would you want to do this on your own? And so this is why prayer is important. And so I was talking to my friend. We took our kids out on a play date over the weekend, and she's basically telling me that she was just at a point in her life where she felt lost and that she felt bad because she had fallen off from like her journaling and like her quiet time with God and her prayer and just the things that she knew she needed to be doing, she felt like she fell off and she felt guilty about it. And I immediately thought about what I had struggled with one, believing truly, getting my own belief, but also like having a desire to build a relationship with him. I think having a desire to build a relationship with God is what gives you the consistency to continue to seek him. And just like how I felt stupid for asking God to help me believe in him more and help me to believe in him in my own way for my own self, I feel like you can go to him and ask him to help you with your lack of desire also. So if you feel like seeking him and having a relationship with him and letting him lead your life is the quote unquote right thing to do, you ain't never going to be consistent with it if you don't actually want to do it. That's like you're not going to do anything else in your life most of the time except go to work if you don't want to do it. If you don't want, we out here as adults, we're not doing stuff we don't want to do. You have to have the desire to want to do this in order for you to be consistent to the point where even on the days where you don't quote unquote feel like it, you understand the importance of it, because what you building a relationship with God is the same as the person that you building a relationship with here on earth. There going to be days where they get on your nerves. There's going to be days where they in one room and you in the other because you don't want to be bothered. It's the same thing, but that doesn't mean you break up with them, right? That doesn't mean that you stop calling and texting them throughout the day, right? You still keep the lines of communication open with them. And so the basics for that is asking God to give you the desire. And again, y'all, he's not offended. He's not offended in you asking him. He wants you to ask him. He wants you to ask him. And so once you ask him to give you that desire, it's still your job to push yourself, to try to do a little bit each day. Rather, it's just saying, hey, God, love you. Thank you for this day. Don't know what else to say to you, but I'm going to circle back with you later. Or reading a scripture or doing a devotional. You still have a part to play while you wait on him to instill that desire in you. And then once you start getting that desire to do those things, now you start gaining understanding about his character, his quote unquote love languages, like we say in our earthly relationships. Understanding gives you the confidence to do what I'm doing right now. Get on this mic and talk about him in a way that people can understand it, in a way that's personal to you, in a way that you're not just quoting scriptures and being this Jesus freak, but you don't really have anything more than surface level understanding. The moral of the story, y'all, is that we can go to God for anything. That includes the basics of, Lord, I don't really believe in you. Can you help me to believe in you? Lord, I don't really want to read my Bible. I don't got time for that. Can you help me to make time? Can you help me to see the importance in this? When I say anything, anything means anything. There are no exceptions. And he's not offended. He doesn't feel like you're bad, or you shouldn't feel bad for going to him for anything. God is not upset with you for starting a relationship with him and then ghosting him like we do people on earth. The problem is we see God how we see people. We'll never be like him in that way. So we can't put him in that box. God, he wants you to come back to him. And like the question that we have to continue to ask ourselves is like, if we had it all together and didn't fall short, what would we need him for? Like literally, what would be the purpose? And so I explained to her, look at building a relationship with God like we do with our husbands, our boyfriends, the people we're dating. Don't you text them throughout the day? So like if you're saying I don't have time to like dedicate an hour or 2 hours to him, okay, you could talk to him throughout the day. Do you go a whole day without texting your boyfriend? Do you go a whole day without texting your man? Do you go a whole day without texting your girl? Probably not. Even on the days where you're not so happy with them, y'all are communicating at least once or twice a day through text message. Y'all find a way. The same way works for God. There are days where I can't even really pray. And so I'll just acknowledge him and say, hey, God, thank you for this day. I don't really know what to say. Like, you know my heart, Lord, help me. Give me the language. Help me to articulate to you what I feel in my heart, because I don't really know what to say. Because at the end of the day, y'all, God got feelings too. And when the relationship is one-sided, that's when things get kind of sticky, because I believe that Christianity has been so Disney Pixar that we think God is supposed to be in our lives to do stuff for us, when really we are supposed to be in partnership with him as a response to what he's already done for us. Did y'all forget that God literally gave his entire life up for us? He died for us, something we'll never, ever be able to wrap our minds around entirely. And so we're not doing him no favors by letting him in our lives. We should let him in our lives and let him lead our lives, because he's already done so much for us. He's done more for us than we'll ever be able to do for him. And so it's how you respond to him. It's how we look at our relationship with him. It's not one-sided. I'm sorry, I might lose some people for this, but there's no way around it. I don't care how much sage you burn. I don't care how much other idols you have. I don't care how much turning up you do here on earth. If you're not doing the work that God has us here to do, you will not get your paycheck at the end of the day. And that was a very difficult for me to wrap my mind around. But when I look at it like that, when I look at it like God ain't just here to bless me. God is not just here to give me the things that I want. He's here to make it worth my while, yes. But my ultimate job on earth is to do what he wants me to do, to make my contribution to his bottom line here on earth. Everything else comes second to that. And so I think for so many of us, the reason why we fall off and come back and fall off and come back is, one, because of guilt. We feel guilty for doing it, not understanding that that's God wants us to keep coming back to him. But we also have been blindfolded and bamboozled to believe that life as a Christian, life with God in the front and center, is supposed to be easy. Y'all, he died on the cross. It wasn't easy for him. So what makes us think that this is supposed to be easy for us? But when you look at it as my paycheck in the end for this will be eternity in heaven, I don't know about you, but I think it makes it so worth the while. And so where I am right now, I'm not saying that I'm perfect, because I'm not. I'll never be. But I'm never going to put God back on the back burner again. Not how I did before. I know I'm going to fall short. I know I'm going to slip up. I know sometimes my flesh is going to win. But now at least I know how to communicate with God. I'm not, y'all, I used to be so afraid to die. I used to be so afraid of, like, what if the world ends today? Like, am I going to go to heaven? Am I going to even know God enough to, like, even consider that I got a chance? Y'all, for the first time in my life, growing up in church, you would think somebody that grew up in church all their life, mom is a minister, that I would be confident in my eternity. I was not. But now I realize that God wants me to need him. And I don't feel like it's a one-sided relationship anymore. And so all of the doors that have been opening for me, all of the way my life is flowing, like even with the challenges, man, like I just feel privileged to be in partnership with the person that created the world. We fighting to be at tables with man here on earth. Bro, if you can say that your partnership with the man that runs the world, bro, that's the ultimate flex. I don't care what nobody say. The ultimate flex. And so while this is not easy, while I do not want to do this, while I don't even know, I might lose the majority of my following, I'm fine with that. Because at the end of the day, I don't want my legacy. I don't want my brand. I don't want anything that my hand touches. I don't want any of that to go in vain. And I can't change the past. I can only be more intentional about the future. And so let this be an example of flow, God's flow. Because baby, this podcast was supposed to go a whole nother direction. But now God is like, no, this is where you're supposed to be. And so I saw a clip on Instagram a few days ago that confirmed for sure that I needed to forget about the video part of this and get this episode recorded and out and stop keeping my mouth shut. I was listening to a message from the pastor at 2819 Church, and the title of the message, it was an old message actually, and it was titled, "They Need Your Testimony." Y'all, I was a wreck after listening to it. A literal wreck. And all I could do was text my friend, because she said, she had texted me after our play date, and she basically was like, wow, I was never explained the relationship with God in the way that you've explained it to me in my 28 years. I've never had anyone break it down to me in that way. And y'all, I can't even take credit for that because I am just understanding it in the way that I explained it. As we are in partnership with God, that's our job on earth, is to carry out his task so that we can get our paycheck in eternity. When you look at it that way, like, I don't know about y'all, but I can't unsee it. I can't unsee it. I cannot unsee it. There is nothing that I could do on this earth that would be more important than that paycheck. Literally nothing. So anyway, I'm listening to this message called They Need Your Testimony. And it literally, I felt like he was in my brain, in my life, like a fly on the wall. And he talked about how at first people would be confused. And that's what I expect as a result of this episode. That's what I expect as a result of this walk I'm on. People might be confused, but then they'll become curious. And at curiosity is where I'm supposed to be equipped and ready to share my journey, to share my experience, and ultimately to let Christ shine through me in all that I do. And so I would say I'm excited, kinda, but I just believe that like I am in a season of absolute obedience. And so I want to share what sealed the deal for me and even press and record on this microphone today. I was watching a message and they referenced Jeremiah 50:6-7. And I'm going to read it from the NLT version because that's the kind of Bible I have. But as I was reading these two verses, it made me go back to the very beginning. The whole chapter 50 of Jeremiah is like, whoa. And it reads, "My people have been lost sheep. Their shepherds have led them astray and turned them loose in the mountains. They have lost their way and can't remember how to get back to the sheepfold. All who found them devoured them. Their enemies said, 'We did nothing wrong in attacking them, for they sinned against the Lord, their true place of rest, and the hope of their ancestors.'" Now, a few things stuck out to me in those two scriptures, but like I said, the whole chapter 50 is wild. It references Babylon being evil and how there are so many people in these days who are gonna come back to Jesus and who have been led astray, like me. You know, like I said, I've always been 1 foot in, 1 foot out, having a surface level understanding and not understanding my role in God's life, right? We always talk about God being in our lives and what God can do for us, but like, what about the role that I'm playing in his life? What about the role that I play in what God has set out for this earth to be and for the people on this earth to do? And now that I see myself in his world, it's a lot easier for me to read my Bible in the days I don't want to read it, to say no to things that I want to do. Let me give y'all a real life story. So this past weekend, there were a couple of things that I was fighting my flesh about, like things that in the past I would have done like just as a no-brainer, would have never thought twice about it. There was a party that was going on that I wanted to go to. And there was a person that I cut off because God told me to months ago that resurfaced and wanted to meet up with me. And I'm going to be honest with y'all. I played both scenarios in my mind a million times all week. And I told God, you know I want to go to this party. You know I want to meet up with this person because I miss them. But I know that's not what you want me to do. So Lord, you're going to have to block every way, every road, every lane, every door open for me to get to that party and for me to meet with that person. Unless I'm going to do it. I ain't even lying to y'all. And so he just so fixed it until the weather was bad on the day of the party. And so I just was like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. And the person that was supposed to meet up with me didn't come to town again. And you can't tell me that was not God. I was honest with him in my communication. I told him, look, I'm going to need you to help me fight my flesh, because if you don't, I'm going to go and just ask for forgiveness later. I'm not even going to lie to y'all. That's exactly what I said to him. And he knew that my desire is to keep our partnership real and authentic. But I think we sometimes use, oh, God will forgive me, I'm going to do it anyway. Like there comes a time And if you're not there, you'll get there eventually if you continue to build relationship with him. There comes a time where you can't use that as an excuse, right? It's not to say you won't fall short and you won't sin, and God is always there to forgive you if you ask for it. But that should not be a crutch. And so I knew that I had to still do my part. I couldn't just pray to him and say, Lord, help me to not go to that party. Help me to not be with that person. The first step was for me, the person that invited me, telling him, no, I won't be attending. And even though I didn't believe it when I said it, that was me doing my part. And the person that I was supposed to meet up with, they didn't come to town again, but I also didn't follow up with them to say, hey, what's up? Where are you? What time we meeting? I avoided it. And in God seeing my effort, he answered my prayer and helping me to fight my flesh in those two ways. And so this is how a relationship works, right? When you get to know a person, when they get to know you, God knows what I'm struggling with. He knows that this, even in this moment, is a struggle. He knows that only he's going to allow me to continue to have these conversations publicly, because I want to keep these text messages between me and my friends. I was cool with that. But if I could use my influence to share all the other areas of my life, I just feel like I would be remiss if I don't do it in this way. And God knows how to confirm things. He will always put things in your face to let you know you're on the right track, because ever since I started reading this book, Simply Pray, I've been sharing it all over my social media. I have been buying copies and sending it to my friends. I've literally become an advocate for this book. And I've had an Amazon storefront. Basically, it's an affiliate program where every time I share a book or a product off of there, I get a commission for it. Y'all, I just went and looked at the numbers. Since I started sharing this book a few days ago, it's been over 100 people that have clicked on the link, and people that have bought the book, people that are commenting on my post saying, hey, I bought the book. Can't wait to read it. I bought the book. I love the book. This has helped me so much. And it just takes me back to Jeremiah 50, where there are so many people that are lost, y'all, but want to find their way back. But I think there are a lot of people struggling with the idea of, one, do I really believe in, and can I get God to help me with that? And two, I want to, but I don't have the desire. Lord, can you help me with that? And I'm here to tell you that you can go to him for anything. God will help you with anything if you ask him. It could be the simplest of things. The things that you think are stupid, the things that you think you can't get him to help you with, the things that you think you can't overcome. He's here for all of that. And I believe that in this season, we're not truly going to find rest until we find Jesus. That extra sleep you getting, the day off of work, the vacation you got planned, none of that is going to quench your desire and your need and your itch for rest and your confidence and your contentment. You cannot find it in anything else. I got things happening in my world that somebody that doesn't know Jesus would have crumbled, would have folded. But because I know now the part that I play, I know now why things happen to me the way they happen. I'm more accepting of it. It doesn't make it easy, but I feel special because I'm in this seat. It's not an easy seat to be in, but I feel privileged that I'm in partnership with him. Like, that's, again, a flex, okay? A flex. So anyway, I say all of this to say that I posted on my social media yesterday, like, Lord, I know you want me to start a group where we can have dialogue, because I think in order to stay consistent on this journey, you got to have other people around you that are on the journey with you, because it can feel lonely. Like, I can't tell y'all how many days I feel like such an outcast because I'm not out doing the things and outside, and I'm home reading my Bible or watching a sermon. Like, I feel off. I feel different. But I'm learning to embrace it. And so that's why now I cannot share my life, because we are living in such a detrimental time. But I'm going to be honest, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where God is taking us, but I do know that he wants me to be obedient, to open my mouth, and to just share what I'm learning about him, about our relationship, and how he sees us and how he wants us to come to him always. And so I am forming a group called Lost and Found. I'll tell y'all another day how that came about. But if you read Jeremiah 50, verse 6 through 7, that confirmed he had already given me the name, and then he gave me Jeremiah 50, 6 through 7. And it literally talks about our people being lost, but found ultimately. And I believe that God is using me in this season to help people get basic understanding of how to build a relationship with him and how to see us as partners with him. And I'm just going to have to be obedient. So I'm asking y'all for grace. Well, first, let me say, if this isn't the journey that you want to be on, by all means, unsubscribe. I will not be offended. But if you do have the desire to change your life and let God lead it for real, I definitely would like to be a part of that. And so I don't know the direction this podcast is going to go in, but I welcome it. This is not about me at the end of the day. I just share my stories and my revelations and like the things that I feel God is putting in my face. I just want to be here to share those things. And I think he's allowed me to create this platform to do that. And I will do that until I can't do it anymore. And so I just want to pray that whoever is listening to this finds peace in it. I pray that you find clarity and maybe something you've been struggling to put language to and understand and articulate. And I just hope overall that this helps someone out there. I thank y'all for rocking with me. Oh God, I don't even know. Like, I'm so nervous about this, but I'm grateful that I think I've articulated where I am so that there's no confusion about where I am. And I hope that you start to learn how to talk to God and get the book Simply Pray by Deb Hopper. Shout out to Deb. I can't wait to meet her. I know I'm going to meet her one day. I got to. But I'm so grateful for this book. I'm grateful for God putting it. I'm grateful that God allowed me to get fired to put this book in my path, to allow me the space to see it and the heart to receive what was in it. And I'm a work in progress. I'm still trying to figure out how to pray even more consistently. And I know that because I'm seeking, God will see me and hear me because we partners. And he wants to equip me as best as he can to do his work. And I will do that. And so I love y'all. I thank y'all. If you're interested in joining the Lost and Found tribe, I'm going to put the link in the description. And you can just sign up. I don't have a date. I don't have a time. But when I get it, you'll be the first to know. I'm literally walking this thing out in real time, y'all. It's crazy because I'm such a logistical person. Like, I like to think things through and do this, but I know for a fact, like, if I didn't move on this, God was going to continue to whip me, and y'all, whipping's hurt, and I don't want to go through that no more. So that's it. I love y'all. Thank y'all for listening. Share this episode with someone. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you have any questions. And hit me up on social media and let me know if you join the tribe. And until the next episode, don't forget to rate, review. And I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.